Yes! Hello, my beautiful friends. What an amazing day it is, and welcome back. I hope that your Thursday is off to an incredible start or coming to a nice, easy close, and your week has been outstanding and incredible. We got a great stream planned ahead. We're going to be talking about Mamdani, or as Rep. Andy Ogles calls him, Little Mohammed, which is a spicy phrase coming out of Andy Ogles' mouth. And this is about Mamdani, this guy, the socialist, who has now swooped on into Tish land, and he's now out talking about what's going on. He was on with Inside Jen Psaki last night on her hit show on MSNBC, and they were talking about whether he's actually a Democrat socialist, and of course he said that he is, and he is causing a lot of people to be nervous, including the New York City current mayor, Adams, who's now out. You see, he brought out the whole entourage today to announce he's running again as an independent. And the question, of course, that comes from Andy Ogles is, can we deport this dude? Can you denaturalize him? He's a citizen. Can you take that away? And it's a very interesting question, because the answer is, yeah, you can. There's a whole process for it, in fact. It's called denaturalization. And there's a bunch of rules that I pulled up that we can talk about, including this section right here. Revocation of naturalization. Oh, there's a whole section down here. Wonder what qualifies in this list. So we'll parse through it, see if there's going to be anything that comes of it or not. He sent a letter over to Pam Bondi. I have my doubts about it, but this has happened before. There have been other revocations that have happened before. This is an old one from 2018, Trump's first term, where they were securing denaturalization of a bunch of other individuals. And so you might, maybe I was a little softer on immigration, and then all of a sudden you start seeing foreign invaders with foreign flags on our streets, and then all of a sudden you say, you know what? Yeah, maybe it's time to denaturalize. And how far back can we go? So we'll see what is inside here and what happens with Mamdani. Mohammed is what Andy Ogles said, and I did not intend to say that, but he did. And so we'll come back to that. We've got, this one is from Adams. We'll listen to him, and we'll hear from Trump, who is also slamming Chuck Schumer, saying, so I don't know what happened with Schumer. He used to like Jewish people, but now he doesn't anymore because he's freaked out that he's going to lose his election. And so I thought I had a clip of him too. Schumer was out there today. We'll see if we can come back to that. But we had that. Then we'll talk about the Supreme Court stuff, because we had a couple cases worth talking about today. One, of course, is the Planned Parenthood case. You probably saw a bunch of news about that today. Alliance Defending Freedom made a video in celebration of the Supreme Court ruling on that case. And then we've got the dissent from Clarence Thomas in this case, which is a criminal law case about the death penalty. And in the dissent were the three most conservative justices, including Judge Thomas. And he was not happy about this case, and rightfully so. And it's about the death penalty. And so we'll come back. We'll talk about it. Pretty big case. And we'll see what he said and learn more about it. Trump was also out today. We had a nice White House event this afternoon talking about the big, beautiful bill. And we also had Kilmar updates as well. So the Trump administration said that Kilmar, remember, he was ordered released. We talked about that earlier this week. Well, they said, if you want us to release him, then he's just going to go over to Homeland, and then Homeland can just afuera him right out of the country. And so his defense team's like, what? You're going to remove him? So they freaked out. They filed this emergency motion saying, can you please bring Kilmar back to Maryland, Judge Zenas, so you can have control over this case? We'll, of course, see what she does. But we got some other updates on the immigration front. We had Senator Blackburn out there today, Barry Moore from Alabama, and Tom Homan, along with the president, all out today talking about immigration. And so it is going to be a beautiful and an amazing stream, my friends. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for subscribing wherever it is you're tuning in from, and thanks for being here. We also want to thank our membos for being membos and supporting our work here, supporting our show, and of course, supporting our community, because we have a great connection of people all across the fruited plains of the entire world. And it's really great to connect with people on the members only streams, little smaller chats, little bit more casual conversations, get our bearings straight on the day, stay energized, stay motivated, stay after whatever it is we're after, and check in on the daily affairs. So come join us. We go live in the mornings, watchingthewatchers.locals.com. If you don't want to join on the YouTubes or on YouTube, you can click and become a membo, and we'll see you on the membos only streams. And so now it's time to get to business. Here is this message. A revocation of citizenship for Mamdani, a.k.a., according to a representative called Andy Ogles, a.k.a. Little Mohammed. Whoa. Saying we should actually deport this dude. That guy who just won in New York. We're going to hear from him. He was over on Inside Jen Psaki's show. We'll come back to that. But this guy, this representative from Tennessee, and if you're not familiar with Andy Ogles, this is who he is. He's on the Finance Committee, Homeland Committee, Freedom Caucus, over there on X, representing Tennessee's 5th Congressional District. And he dropped this one today. He says, Zohan Little Mohammed Mamdani is an anti-Semitic socialist communist who will destroy the great city of New York. He needs to be deported, which is why I am calling for him to be subject to denaturalization proceedings. Attached is my letter to Pam Bondi. We got the denaturalization laws pulled up here, courtesy of the DOJ. So Pam Bondi has this in her manual, so she can do something about it. We'll come back to that. And of course, take a look at the letter and the other government policy attachments in this section that say, yeah, actually, if you're a member of a communist party, if you're a comrade of Stalin and Marx, then you're not welcome here. And if you had that recently, then your naturalization may be fraudulent. So we'll come back to it. But this is what Andy Ogles said. He says he needs to be deported, which is why I'm calling for him to be subject to denaturalization proceedings. Here's the letter to Pam Bondi. And I think it is also pretty rich to be saying that somebody's anti-Semitic and then basically calling him Little Mohammed. I mean, if you were to say something like that about an actual Jewish person, you could imagine the reaction to that, right? If somebody came out and said, oh, little Shapiro, who's a Jew, little Jew Shapiro, or something like that, right? Everybody go, oh, I might get in trouble for saying that. Just saying that. Just as an example, I didn't say it. But what if it was reversed, right? You're like, wait a minute. So you can't be anti-Semitic, but you can be anti-Palestinian? It's kind of strange. Anyway, so it's a little bit, in other words, you can call Little Muhammad or like turbans or something or, whatever, all the pejoratives you want, go off the rails with those. But it's interesting how, one way it's like you should be deported. The other way it's like totally acceptable. You could be a congressman. Kind of a strange double standard there. But anyways, the point is, the question is about denaturalization. And so he says, I write to you, Pam Bondi, to request. Oh, is the Little Mohammed endorsed by himself? Does he call himself Little Mohammed? So that might be an amazing correction. So thank you for that education. And I'm not sure if that's the case or not. Maybe he does call himself that, right? If that's a self-ascribed label, then I think that would be totally fine. And maybe that is the case, but I don't know. Now, I don't follow him. So any Mamdani fans out there, please correct me. Thank you for that, because that would be very explanatory. Now, I write to request that the DOJ open an investigation into whether Zohan Kwame Mamdani, currently a candidate for New York, should be subject to denaturalizations proceedings under 8 U.S. Code 1451 on the grounds that he may have procured U.S. citizenship through willful misrepresentation or concealment of material support for terrorism. According to public reports, including a June 2025 New York Post article, Mamdani expressed open solidarity with individuals convicted of terrorism-related offenses prior to becoming a U.S. citizen. Footnote 1, he gave an interview. Candidate Zohan Mamdani once rapped about his love for Hamas terror funding group called the Holy Land Five. Maybe this isn't a rap song. Little Mohammed. Oh my gosh, this is going to be amazing if that is true. Specifically, he rapped Free the Holy Land 5. My guys. The Holy Land Foundation was convicted in 2008 of providing material support to Hamas, a designated foreign terrorist organization. Publicly praising the foundation's convicted leadership as my guys raises serious concerns about whether Mamdani held affiliations or sympathies that he failed to disclose during his naturalization process, which seems fair. Now, while I understand that some may raise First Amendment concerns about taking legal action based on expressive conduct, such as rap lyrics, speech alone does not preclude accountability where it reasonably suggests underlying conduct relevant to eligibility for naturalization. If an individual publicly glorifies a group convicted of financing terrorism, it is entirely appropriate for federal authorities to inquire whether that individual engaged in non-public forms of support, such as organizational affiliation, fundraising, or advocacy that would have required other disclosure during the interview. Now, moreover, Mr. Mamdani has recently refused opportunities to reject the pro-terrorist rallying cry to, quote, globalize the intifada. Moreover, Mr. Mamdani has recently refused opportunities to reject these people. While political speech in isolation is not dispositive, in light of earlier statements from Mamdani, the expression of admiration of individuals convicted of supporting terrorism is a troubling pattern that emerges that warrants formal scrutiny. Writing, the denaturalization process depends on good faith disclosure of any affiliation of any groups that might threaten U.S. national security. If Mr. Mamdani concealed relevant associations, that concealment may constitute a material misrepresentation, fraud, sufficient to support denaturalization under the law. The federal government must hold public trust by ensuring that citizenship is not granted under false pretenses. Why should any other contract be invalidated if it's fraudulent, except citizenship? You're just like, well, you got us duped. You were supposed to disclose all this stuff, but since we didn't catch you, well done. Welcome to our country. No. Says the federal government must uphold public trust by ensuring that citizenship is not granted under false pretenses. I respectfully urge the DOJ to determine whether Mr. Mamdani's conduct prior to his naturalization that he did not disclose to us, whether that warrants formal review, Pam, under applicable law. Andy Ogles, member of Congress, over here in Tennessee. And so, oh, that was very loud on our eardrums. And that was that dude. Okay, that's him right there. That was him screaming at everybody in New York. And they want more of that. Or that was probably in Congress, screaming at Congress people. How dare you arrest illegal aliens out of our country? And we don't know what Little Muhammad is. I don't know if that is a song. I just threw it into the Googs and I don't see it. Let's see. And I threw it into Chat GPT. And there's a guy on SoundCloud called Little Muhammad, and there's a bunch of little kids who look like they're named Muhammad, who are little, I guess. So that's all I got on it. I don't know what that is, but I'm open to another explanation on that. But I just think it's very interesting how that works. Anyways, even if you might agree with denaturalization and throwing him out, it's interesting to say, to kind of call, to throw names out there and then to say, how dare you say anything that's anti-Semitic? It's like, all right, well, how about we just don't do any of that? And you can just say, this guy's a national security risk and a threat to the country, and so therefore he should go, and he lied under false pretenses and all the things. But that's really a side note, right? It's a little stylistic thing and an interesting standard. However, the point is, what about denaturalization? Can you get rid of this dude? Turns out you might be able to. He is now 1991 born, so young dude, not that young, but the son of academic Mahmoud Mamdani and another filmmaker. He was born in Uganda and briefly lived in South Africa. Came to the United States when he was 7 years old. And so the question is, when was he naturalized and all those things? When did he gain his citizenship? In 2024, they don't tell us when he got his citizenship. First elected in 2020, Mamdani announced his candidacy, Graduated with a bachelor's degree in Africana Studies. Went to Bedoin College, Democratic, and he's a Democrat Socialist of America, which is a communist group. Now, in 2024, he won. He came in saying we want city-owned grocery stores so that they can all starve to death over there, free city buses, public child care, which is wild, and you want government bureaucrats watching your kids in New York. They're like, sure, yeah, take them down to like the MVD people working there. He is a critic of Israel. During the Democratic primary campaign, Mamdani received several endorsements from prominent progressives like Bernie Sanders and AOC, became the presumptive nominee. And let's see, he co-founded the Students for Justice in Palestine, music career. Maybe there's little Mohammed in here, I don't know. Entered New York politics and is now maybe going to win in New York. So pretty wild. Now, here were a couple other updates. So this was an attachment that you can find in the policy manual over at uscis.gov, Citizenship and Immigration Services. They say, here's our policy manual, okay? When you're looking at whether you can get rid of these people, whether they're citizens or not, naturalized or not, here's the rules, right? He was not born here, so he's not got that birthright automatic citizenship like the rest of the illegals get. He gets a different type of citizenship. So it's called naturalization. Now, here's an attachment to this, and it says, you know, there's a bunch of things. To be admitted as a citizen, naturalization applicants must take the oath of allegiance in a public ceremony. You must actually believe in America. You're swearing your allegiance to the country, not to Palestine and not to Israel, Ted. To be admitted to citizenship, naturalization applicants must take the oath of allegiance in a public ceremony. At that time, an applicant declares his or her attachments to the United States and the Constitution. We should make our stinking Congress people do this too, by the way. All of them. Swear your allegiance. Do it. No. Say America. Say the United States of America. I dare you say it. That it's the best country in the world. Can you say it? Many of them couldn't. Now, the applicant, right, must understand that they're taking this oath freely. You love this country. You love liberty. You despise communism. The applicant must understand that he is sincerely renouncing all foreign allegiance, okay? Not for Palestine, not for Gaza, not for Russia, not for Ukraine, not for any other country. You're here now. You're an American. The applicant must also understand that he or she is giving true faith and allegiance to the United States during the naturalization process. Now, males required to register for the Selective Service. And you must also say, right, you're going to have true faith and allegiance to the United States, to our Constitution, and to the laws, not to your perversion of our Constitution because you like the way other countries do it better and want to impose your communistic philosophy on the rest of us. Now, the immigration people will deny a naturalization application where the applicant refuses to register with the Selective Service. Some people are not required to register. Draft evaders are a problem. And here's another problem. You are not allowed into our country if you have membership in certain organizations. The officer who's reviewing the naturalization paperwork, like they would have been doing with Mamdani, the officer will review an applicant's record and testimony during the interview on the naturalization application to determine whether he or she was ever a member of or in any way associated, either directly or indirectly, with the Communist Party, any other totalitarian party, or a terrorist organization. Oh, and what was he writing? Rap songs for Hamas in the Five Alive guys over in Hamasville, wherever. Current and previous membership in these organizations may indicate a lack of attachment to the Constitution of our country, which we revere, and an indication that the applicant is not well disposed to the good order and happiness of the United States, which is what we used to care about. Now we care about importing all the rest of the world's problems and allowing them to use our country as their little battleground to blast each other out, wreck our universities, wreck our public education, wreck our healthcare, wreck our governance, vote illegally, traffic humans across our border. All those things, all in the name of like humanitarianism or something like that. Like we're better people in America because we allowed all that to happen. How are you better to your neighbor when you sit there and allow this to happen to your own citizens, to your own country? It's a disgusting thing. And that's why we have this in the rules. so that we have people who come into this country who are disposed to the good order and the happiness of the United States. And if you're a communist or a totalitarian or a terrorist, you're not welcome here. So get out. Go fight for Palestine. Go back and fight for Uganda. Now, the burden rests on the applicant to prove that he or she has an attachment to the Constitution, or that he or she is well disposed and is going to be someone who contributes to the good order and happiness of the United States. An applicant who refuses to testify or provide this documentation has not met the burden of proof, and we may deny the naturalization application under the grounds where an applicant was not removed at the end of removal proceedings. Now, you also cannot be a communist here. An applicant cannot naturalize. This is according to a government website, uscis.gov, Immigration Naturalization. Says here, 10 years. If you have any of this within the last 10 years immediately preceding a filing for naturalization, and again, I don't know the exact date of when Mamdani went through this, whether he was an adult recently. I tried to glean that over here from Wikipedia. We didn't see that here on the background on that. But the question, of course, is what do the laws say? What do the specifics say? The question, of course, a congressperson is saying, let's do this, Pam. So Pam is going to, what do our rules say? If they've been affiliated with the Communist Party, and I think his father was, the applicant has advocated communism or the establishment of the United States of a totalitarian dictatorship. If you support Hamas, maybe you can make that argument. The applicant has been or affiliated with an organization that advocates communism or establishing a totalitarian dictatorship, which many people would say is that's what socialism is. It's an oligarchical managing of the affairs by the government. And it's never, even if you want to say, we live in a democracy or democratic republic, when you ultimately boil these things down to it, there's like 5-6 people who really run things of the whole thing. Yes, we've got 535 senators and congresspeople and all that stuff. There's like one dude, 2 maybe, in both of those bodies who actually make the whole thing work, right? We saw it with McConnell, you see it with Johnson, and there's a lot of noise and only a lot of real actors. It's really the also Pareto principle, I think 80-20, you understand. So the point is, here, the applicant, if he's a communist, cannot be allowed. Now, exemptions to Communist Party affiliation, maybe he meets one of these. If it was involuntary, if he's not actually a communist, the applicant's membership was without his awareness, was terminated prior to attaining the age of 16. So once he hit a certain age, does it reset the clock? Was it over 10 years? Has he been a non-communist for 10 years? Or Nazis. You're not welcome if you're a Nazi either. We don't want Nazis here. Get out. Applicants who are affiliated with the Nazis, you're not welcome. Persecution and genocide, you're also barred. And if you have a membership or affiliation, writing rap songs to get them out of custody, I'm imagining this is exactly what they are referencing in this letter. Andy Ogle specifically saying that's the one. He's writing rap music for Hamas terrorists. And KC Cat says he became a U.S. citizen 5 years ago. Okay, so falls right within those rules. So is he affiliated with other communist groups? Was he an active communist at any point in the last 10 years? Did he go to a communist meeting in the last 10 years? And communism must be absolutely rooted out. We don't want communists. We don't want Nazis. We don't want any of these people coming in who are going to use America as their warring battlegrounds and bring their problems with them. We got enough of our own problems here and a lot to fix, so we don't need more. Now, here's another section here, just to buttress this point up, baby, telling us, in the Justice Manual. So that was over at Immigration. Let's go over to the Justice Department. What do they say? Well, all right. You go to the Justice Department Manual, justice.gov. Let's see what the manual says. Oh, Title 4 Civil. Oh, there's 4.7.0. Immigration litigation, exactly what we're looking for. And now we go down to a revocation. As of April 2025, they're currently revising this guidance. So please consult with Immigration and Litigation. They're saying we're going to really enforce this is what's happening. Like, we are going to use this aggressively. So we're studying it right now. So if you want to contact us about what's happening here, please do that. Now, the enforcement unit has the following priorities. If you're a danger to national security, if you got a nexus to terrorism or any of those things, you might be somebody who illegally procured naturalization. Or you got your naturalization 5 years ago, according to KC Cat. Thank you for the assist on that. For her naturalization by concealment of a material fact or willful misrepresentation. So in addition to those prior categories, communist, Nazi, totalitarian, somebody who wants to hurt America, well, you can't do that. But in addition to that, did you lie? Like, just like any other contract, you can't enter into a contract and be fraudulent and engage in false pretenses and willful misrepresentation. The civil division has adopted these. If you're a terrorist or have a nexus to terrorism, including rap music, you're gone. Cases against individuals and war crimes probably doesn't apply. Cases against, but he's affiliated with maybe Hamas, and you might say they did. Cases against individuals who committed very serious felonies, and I don't think he's got any serious felonies, that were not disclosed, and so that probably doesn't apply. But you might have this one, right? Nexus to terrorism right there. So the DOJ's got a pretext for it if they wanted to. I doubt that they will, but they could. And immigration also says, oh boy, if you're a communist or somebody affiliated with a totalitarian or terrorist organization like Hamas, then you are disqualified. And if you didn't disclose that to us, that's an incomplete, invalid application. You swore there under penalty of perjury that I declare that I am, all the truth for the foregoing reason. And you lie about that, citizenship revoked. And we've seen this before, by the way. So Homeland regularly does this. You're like, wait a minute. Can you just revoke someone's citizenship? I thought it was kind of like anchored in there, right? I don't want people coming and saying, you know what, Rob, you're not a citizen either. But I've always been a citizen, right? Fortunately, God bless, I was born here in this country, very proud of it, very happy about it. Don't want it to be watered down because I know what makes it great is not the geography, it's the values, it's the principles, it's the people. So we want to protect that. And now the question is, what if you came in here and we have standards to evaluate whether you're a good entry or not? Do we have that right to do that? Of course we do, if you want to be a sane country, and we do. And so we're enforcing that. And what if somebody lied to you? As long as they get past the post, is that good enough? They just make it in? Just cross the finish line and you're an American citizen? No, there's a lot of fraud that goes on in this space. And people have their citizenship, so-called, revoked. They did a bunch of this before just because of bad fingerprint records, all right? There's fraud all over the place. They found, this is a back in 2016 report, right? Even before Trump came into office, they said that the U.S. government granted citizenship to it back then, 858 people, ordered deported or removed under another identity. When during the naturalization process, their digital fingerprint records were not available, right? So they're just like, well, I got denied the first time, so I'll just use a fake ID, probably from China, and come in. The digital records were not available, and so now we've identified 148,000 older fingerprint records that are also problematic. Our repository is missing records because not all records taken during immigration encounters were forwarded to the FBI, and so a lot of this hasn't been digitized. And so they're processing these, or did, and they have historically revoked status. We saw this one. Justice Department back in 2018 did secure the first denaturalization as a result of Operation Janus. They got rid of this dude. They identified 315,000 cases where fingerprint data was bad. And this guy, Baljinder Singh, he came to San Francisco 1991 without any ID at all, claimed his name was Devinder Singh, changed his name. He was placed in exclusion proceedings but failed to appear, right? Oh, just go live in America forever. 4 weeks later, he filed an asylum claim under a different name, Baljinder. He claimed to be an Indian who entered the United States without inspection. He abandoned that application after he married a U.S. citizen who filed a visa on his behalf, then naturalized under another name and has been residing in New Jersey. All fraudulent. And now that stops. So, question, of course, Mamdani, can he be denaturalized? Answer, yes, the law clearly provides it. Does he meet the standards? Can he? Sure. Will he? That's a whole separate conversation. We'll see what Pam Bondi does with any of it. But the reporting is out there that they have looked into this before. They identify a bunch of people with different problematic admission paperwork, and it's time for them to go. So Jen Psaki had him on, and Mamdani went on Inside Jen Psaki, MSNBC's #1 hit show, The Briefing exclusive. Mamdani is now speaking to the press after his tremendous obliteration of Cuomo.
You're running on issues that are very relevant to people in New York City, the cost of housing, free busing. Some have projected, that this is the type of platform that would work in other parts of the country. I mean, you're a proud democratic socialist. Do you think that is a platform that would work for other candidates running in other parts of the country?
Absolutely. I think ultimately this is a campaign about inequality. And you don't have to live in the most expensive city in the country to have experienced that inequality, because it's a national issue. And what Americans coast to coast are looking for are people who will fight for them, not just believe in the things that resonate with their lives, but actually fight and deliver on those very things. And part of how we got to this point was through the endorsements of Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Senator Bernie Sanders, who've been leading this fight against oligarchy across the country. And I think that in focusing on working people and their struggles, we also return back to what makes so many of us proud to be Democrats in the first place.
Which I still don't know what it is. I guess giving people more things out of the mystery utopia land where things are just printed off trees and resources come out of everyone's booties. I don't know how that works, but it is the sweet siren song of socialism, right? And this is what happens when you do have a society that keeps inflating away the money, keeps inviting illegal alien invaders, where there's no hard currency, there's no hard assets. Nobody can accumulate capital. If you can't get capital and buy a house or buy a car or have a nice income where you can go do things and enjoy your life rather than working constantly to even just support your family, never buy a house and all these things that we hear about, then you're not going to have capital, and people are not going to be capitalists because they're not going to understand the benefits of that, because they can't. They'll earn money and they have to spend it before it's inflated away. There's no value to anything. So then they come in, like these communists and these socialists. We talk about this pendulum that swings constantly, and they're going to capitalize on that disfavor, that fervor. We saw this back during the Woodrow Wilson era, back during that very liberal, insane time when our country passed the 17th Amendment, 16th Amendment, the one for taxes, where they taxed us with income tax. I think it was 16th. But you understand, why did we do that to ourselves? Well, we were very upset with all of the robber barons and the Rockefellers and the Vanderbilts and all the rest of them. And so we said, we're going to make this fair and equal. And now we're all getting ransacked by the government, and they're all spending our money in God knows how, multiple different ways, and they want more of it. And it sounds attractive because a lot of people are sitting there going, wait, you know what? I can't actually save any money because it all just gets evaporated, right? You go from your $5 footlong into a $12 footlong. And we don't appreciate it. So that being said, the answer is not socialism. The answer is not communism. The answer is less government, more free markets, allow the people who actually live here to work here and to earn an income and to build into a country that is set up for them to create long-term assets and build wealth over the course of a life. Not stuff that is fleeting, where everybody's just getting their little daily hits off TikTok, gambling, pornography, disposable relationships, and many other bad things that are all just meant to distract people from building something useful with their lives. And that's what the socialists promise. We're going to come in, we're going to help you. We're the government. You can't do it for yourself. We're going to do it for you. They're terrible at it. And this guy came out of a silver spoon, right? He was rich as hell. And now he's going to try to equalize it for the rest of everybody else. So Mayor Adams came out and he was explaining that we got a lot of work to do. So Adams is now running as an independent, and Curtis Sliwa is now out of the race, is what I read. And here is what Adams says, as they're all freaked out. Like, are we going to have this communist in our country running our government?
I'm so proud to be here to say to the people of the city of New York, I am seeking re-election to be your mayor of the city of New York. The champ is here. The champ is here.
All right, so that was Mayor Adams, and I thought we were going to get a little bit more of a clip from him. Here we
Between
go.
real progress and empty promises. A future for working people, not a fantasy state. This election of choice between those who believe in this city and those who don't. Let me tell you something. This is a city not of socialism.
No.
I've been to socialist countries. This is a city where you could come as a dishwasher and you can own a chain of restaurants. This is a city where you can be a cab driver and then become a doctor. This is a city where you could go from homelessness to building housing. This is a city where you could be a young person who's dyslexic, a young person who was rejected, and eventually to be elected to be the mayor of the city of New York. This is the type of city we're in. This is not a city where you use idealism to state you're giving everything to everyone for free. There's no dignity in someone giving you everything for free.
That's right.
There's dignity in giving you a job so you can provide for your family and the opportunities that you deserve. So this is not a city of handouts. This is a city of hands up. We're going to lift up the city of New York. And so I'm asking you, New Yorkers, to continue to stand with me as we move this city in the right direction. I'm ready to be your mayor again for another 4 years.
All right, so he might basically be becoming a Republican. It's kind of what it sounds like. You have to get out there and actually work, right? Like the Democrats just saying, well, we're going to just give you more vacation, more government benefits, and you can, if you don't like it, just come work for the government and we'll guarantee you a job for the rest of your life and you can never get fired or anything. And then if we do want to fire you, then you can sue us with all your unions that you have unionized against the government and then wage war against us and then scold the rest of us for castigating you for firing civil servants who are so qualified and so enamored with serving America. So they have to go find new jobs. All right, we get it. Now, Trump was also out today ripping on Chuck Schumer. Chuck Schumer in New York used to like Jewish people, but now he doesn't, apparently.
The other day, guys like Schumer, our great Palestinian senator, this guy, no, he's changed. He used to like Jewish people. Now he's totally against Jewish people. It's the most incredible transformation I think I've ever seen. But who would allow this to happen? In other sports, the same thing. Try the other day.
It's happening a lot, happening in a lot of locations. Everybody's trying to figure out what the new Democratic Party looks like now that there's this intra-party warfare that is happening. And Mamdani, the communist, terrorist-associated, aligned individual, now facing formal requests by representatives demanding that he be investigated for fraudulence and misrepresentations in his naturalization process. And we'll see what Pam Bondi does or says in response to this and what New York does in response to the impending communist takeover that they voted for. Hopefully Congress makes sure there's no more SALT deductions for them and they pay full price for their crap policies. All right, my friends, let's continue on and talk about the Supreme Court, because we got some good stuff here too that we want to sink some time into from the Supreme Court. Clarence Thomas on the Supreme Court, not happy with the majority opinion, filed this scathing dissent saying that they are making up due process and this liberty interest out of whole cloth. It came from their imaginations back during an earlier era of the court, and the court is now perverting it. This case relates to a death penalty criminal defendant, and we'll come back on that one. But there was another big case this morning that also dropped in the case of Medina versus Planned Parenthood of the South Atlantic. And this woman, Alliance Defending Freedom, is celebrating this victory from SCOTUS that came down and said that states, in this case, South Carolina, can block Medicaid money from going to Planned Parenthood, the abortion Walmart. Says here, states can block the country's biggest abortion provider from getting that Medicaid money, that government money. The 6-3 opinion that we'll look at, or that we will not look at, we'll look at another Supreme Court case, but it's 6-3. It was written by Justice Neil Gorsuch and joined by the rest of the court's conservatives, was not directly even about abortion. It closes off their primary path, though, to keep their funding in place, which is the lawsuit. They said you can't really sue about this. The justices said that while the Medicaid law allows people to choose their provider, you can go choose, you can't sue to get that right to a provider. Because then everybody could sue and everybody would just say, well, I want this provider, and the government would have to respond and just give them that. The court split along ideological lines. 3 liberals love abortion. Public health care money generally cannot be used to pay for abortions, but they go there for a bunch of other reasons, they say. Yeah. Governor Henry McMaster, a Republican, said that Planned Parenthood should not get any taxpayer money, and the budget-backed bill by the president would also cut a bunch of money to that group. And so they were very happy about this ruling, and here is what Alliance Defending Freedom had to say in celebration.
Today, we're celebrating a major victory. The U.S. Supreme Court just ruled in favor of South Carolina, freeing states to redirect taxpayer dollars away from abortion businesses like Planned Parenthood. States are no longer forced to fund big abortion. Planned Parenthood's primary business is abortion, performing over 400,000 abortions in just 1 year. And it's the second largest provider of dangerous gender transition drugs in the U.S., even giving them to minors across the country. Planned Parenthood is a multi-billion-dollar activist organization with a track record of putting radical abortion and gender identity politics over people. Planned Parenthood doesn't need American taxpayer dollars. South Carolina has given us the roadmap. Let's defund Planned Parenthood now.
Let's do it! Great video, so thank you for that, Alliance Defending Freedom. And Planned Parenthood is like a monolith of the left, right? They set up these institutions like abortion institutions and all these like defending democracy institutions and all this, the internet disinformation governance societies and all these things in order to control the populace. And Planned Parenthood was getting tons of government money under the guise of healthcare to prop up a major cultural icon for the Democratic Party. And now the Supreme Court said, no, don't get to do that anymore. And they're very unhappy about this. This is what they sounded like today as Elizabeth Warren was trying to really raise a ruckus on this in the Senate.
You are the chief medical officer of Planned Parenthood Great Rivers in Missouri. So just explain to us, where will your patients go if more Planned Parenthood locations are closed?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. And the answer is there is nowhere for them to go. So we are part of the safety net. And while there are other providers that are part of the safety net as well, they are overwhelmed. And so there is nowhere in St. Louis or in the Ozarks or in Southern Illinois that can absorb the patients that we care for on a daily basis. So again, what I think will happen is there will be longer waiting times. Diagnoses will be delayed. Again, cancer diagnoses, infection diagnoses.
Everyone's going to die because government is not paying for abortions. We got it. So very unhappy about that over there. And a nice victory for the conservatives on the court and for our country, saying you don't have to fund these medical operations or these entities that provide those. And we like to see that. So here is what also came down from the Supreme Court. You saw this one. Ruben Gutierrez versus Luis Saenz in the Supreme Court. And what I'd like to start with today is the dissent, because Judge Clarence Thomas is going to flesh out everything that the majority talked about anyways as he shreds it in time. So let's start here. Clarence Thomas, Supreme Court judge, writing for the Supreme Court in the dissent, part of the entity, the branch of the government or the section of the government that is in the losing half, in a 6-3 decision. We've got 3 judges in the minority, Thomas, Alito, and another one. Now, here is what Thomas wrote. He says, first of all, I'm joining Judge Alito. This case involves a death penalty case. I agree that Ruben Gutierrez lacks standing to bring a federal lawsuit alleging that Texas and their post-DNA rules violate due process. Okay, so Ruben sues someone in Texas who is denying him the right to test some DNA evidence. Texas says you have no right to test that DNA evidence. He says you're violating my due process. He writes separately to emphasize, though, says Clarence Thomas, that this court has no business intervening in this case in the first place. writing, the Constitution does not require any state, Texas or any of them, to establish procedures for state prisoners to challenge the validity of their convictions after the trial. So Clarence Thomas is looking to the Constitution and saying, wait a minute. He's suing, saying he's got a right to something. Where does that right come from? But his lawsuit is resting on the premise of the 14th Amendment, the Due Process Clause. It gives him this magical liberty interest that we've been talking about here for months now. Judges, 14th Amendment, due process. You got plenty of due process. No, he needs more. What? He got hearings. He got written court orders. Judges reviewed all the evidence. People testified. He needs more because they just don't want him to leave. So they keep manufacturing these things. Clarence Thomas gets rid of it. He says, now that premise cannot be squared with any actual reading of the Due Process Clause. And so therefore, I disagree. And our intervention serves no other purpose than to just exacerbate the already ridiculous capital litigation. And when it comes to death penalty cases, a lot of people will say, well, why would we want to imprison them for the rest of our lives and pay for that? And what you end up finding is that the statistics show that it's way more expensive to put somebody on death row by a factor of like 10 to 20 times because they got all these appeals and all the special stuff. So anyways, the point is they take forever. This is just going to make it a lot longer. Now, the Texas Constitution provides that capital defendants have a right to a trial by jury. Texas likes to use this provision. Now, it provides that after a defendant is convicted, he might file an appeal. They already allow prisoners who were sentenced to death to challenge their conviction. They can file a petition for habeas corpus and do a bunch of things. But even if the prisoner trial was error-free, he can also still file. Writing. Now, citing some law. Now, upon the motion, the convicting court may order testing if certain conditions are met for DNA evidence. He wanted DNA evidence. The rules say you can get it if we have it. Now, upon his motion, the convicting court may order testing if certain conditions are met, including that the evidence still exists, that he can show he would not have been convicted, and he can show he's not bringing the motion to just delay the execution. If they obtain DNA testing, then they can use the results to support their habeas petitions. Now, what happened here, those are the rules. A Texas jury convicted this guy, Gutierrez, sentenced him to death, 1998, for the robbery and unaliving of this woman called Escolastica Harrison. Having thrice failed to obtain DNA testing under the law, he now claims that my due process is being violated. So to make sense of these claims, writes Clarence Thomas, we must first understand what rights the Due Process Clause protects in the first place. The clause says, no state shall deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, right? And that phrase has been perverted in so many ways it's unrecognizable now. But in other words, the states cannot decide to take away an individual's life, liberty, or property unless it adheres to certain procedures, a process that they are due for that issue. But the Due Process Clause does not protect all rights. It says life, liberty, and property. That's it. Thus, the first step in any due process analysis is to determine whether the right that they're asserting fits within one of those buckets. And if it doesn't fit in one of the buckets, then due process doesn't apply. Now, by seeking to execute Gutierrez and to imprison him, Texas is definitely trying to seek to deprive him of his life and liberty because they're going to eliminate him. But Gutierrez does not base his due process claim on either one of those deprivations at all, because he has received far more than the process even required to justify them. Under our precedents, Texas must conduct a trial before it can imprison or execute somebody. They did. But a state is not required to provide a right to appellate review. They don't have to give you that right. And nor does it need to provide post-conviction relief, which is even further removed. They do. Now, Texas thus gave him, at his 1999 trial, everything that he needed. Like, it's done. The ensuing quarter century of direct and collateral review back since 1999, it's over. has been ongoing for 26 years. Now, he instead asserts, he says, I have a distinct liberty interest. He says, actually, Texas came in. So it's not life, liberty, or property that he's complaining about. It's not in his pleadings. He's actually saying it's something different. My right that's being violated is the state-created right to post-conviction relief, which is what a lot of states have. Arizona has it. After you're convicted, let's say you go to trial, you present evidence, cop testifies, you're convicted, you go to jail. Then we learned, oh, that cop's a liar. He testified, lied under oath, committed perjury. You found some other evidence, he's a liar. Do you have to serve out the term? No, because now you can go say, well, there's new facts, file a petition for post-conviction relief. This judgment should be set aside. Here are the reasons why. Explain it and undo that, right? And then go after that cop. But the point is, you can create that, and a lot of states have mechanisms for reopening cases after the conclusion of a case. And he says, since they've created that, I have this right now under the 14th Amendment. So in his view, part of the liberty that Texas prisoners enjoy under the 14th Amendment is a right to obtain relief pursuant to their habeas statutes, and says, I've got a bunch of liberty interests here. But Clarence Thomas responds. He says the 14th Amendment does not protect his asserted so-called liberty interest, all right? As originally understood, liberty in the 14th Amendment likely referred only to freedom from physical restraint. That's it. It did not include entitlements to government-created benefits. That's not what liberty means. Like you get free health care from the government and you can sue for that. This court's contrary precedent stems from a conscious, policy-based rejection of due process. Due process doesn't mean what we think it means because they perverted it so much. The original meaning of liberty in the 14th Amendment was likely far narrower than our court currently holds. It originally appears to have referred only to freedom from physical restraint. But in the Lochner era, which was this era during the Supreme Court, the court began to hold that liberty includes fundamental rights generally. So they just tucked a bunch of stuff into the due process clause. Well, it includes this, and includes abortion, includes right to privacy, includes all these things. The court has since adhered to that. And they said, well, it kind of makes sense. Sounds good. Now, as with any legal text, we must look at the law, original and the ordinary meaning of its terms. When the court just says, well, you know what, actually now due process means a bunch of this other crap without Congress passing that law, that is a judicial expansion of some sort of power or limitation. And we don't want that. That's not how our system is set up. So Clarence Thomas is pushing back, saying when the 14th Amendment was actually adopted in 1868, its due process clause was understood to embody an old principle dating back to the Magna Carta. That provided that a free man may not be prosecuted in prison or destroyed, except by the law of the land. A century later, law of the land stated that no man shall be put to death or imprisoned without due process of the law. Back in 1354. The second part of that was by due process of the common law. Now, Blackstone referred to Magna Carta's law of the land in a different dictionary, and liberty in the Fifth Amendment that we passed likely refers only to the freedom from physical restraint. That's it. Blackstone defined the right of personal liberty as the power of locomotion, the changing situation, removing one's person to whatever place one's own inclination may direct, without imprisonment, restraint, unless by due course of law. So a bunch of different definitions. Now, if the Fifth Amendment uses liberty in a narrow sense, then the 14th Amendment does too. Because it's basically applying the Fifth Amendment, incorporating that power to the states. So it was not until later, writes Clarence Thomas, until the Lochner era, when this court adopted a much broader and expansive term of liberty. During that period, stretching from 1897 to 1937, this court relied on the legal fiction of this made-up thing called substantive due process. We have like due process, well, there's procedural, and now there's substantive. So procedural due process is about the process that you go through. Was the procedure right? Did you get notice? Did you have an opportunity for a hearing? Did the paperwork get sent to your address and you read it and all the things? Like, was the process valid? And it's the same for everybody and it wasn't biased for you? Great. You have procedural due process. So then they expanded it and they're like, well, substantive due process is about these other rights that are being violated that we're just also going to act on. And it's not necessarily about the process, but it's about what's happening to the person. It's the substance of what you're complaining about. And they just expanded it. Now, under that fiction, the due process clauses forbade all government infringement on certain fundamental liberty interests, no matter what process was involved or provided. And you might listen to that. Well, maybe these are fundamental interests and rights. Maybe we don't want the government impeding on these fundamental infringements on certain fundamental liberty interests. But you see, it's been perverted. It's from like this negative liberty into this positive liberty. In one sense, you are saying the government cannot do these things. But in another sense, people are now suing and saying, well, I have a liberty interest in this, so I should be able to go get it. Not that the government is not going to do the thing, but that the government should give me the thing or do the thing for me. To make this new fiction work, the court reinterpreted the clause's guarantee of process to encompass substance, a notion that strains credulity for even the most casual users of words. Writing, the court's embrace, Clarence Thomas, of substantive due process is also requiring it to jettison the concept of liberty as only freedom from restraint so that it could encompass other rights that the court deemed to be fundamental, like a woman's fundamental right to choose, made up by the courts. This court's first substantive due process decision under the 14th Amendment, the court for the first time broadened the definition of liberty to include freedom of contract, tracing the interpretation of liberty through the 14th Amendment and more. Now, by the height of the Lochner era, the court had stretched the term to cover those privileges long recognized in common law and essential to the orderly pursuit of happiness by free men. Sounds amazing, right? Now, these privileges included the right of the individual to contract, to engage in any of the common occupations of life, to acquire useful knowledge, to marry, to establish a home, to bring up children. You have the right to contract, right? And it gets perverted into now you've got the right for the government to help you do these things. To worship God according to the dictates. Now, this court eventually repudiated this muscular version of substantive due process, at least for economic rights. And so this has been a battle for a while. Now, Gutierrez says, I have a state-created liberty interest. They said I could sue. And so I'm filing my lawsuit now. Now, founding era Americans shared another understanding of liberty. The Lockean idea, John Locke, the idea of civil liberty as natural liberty is constrained by human law. The understanding of liberty as a natural right persisted until the 14th Amendment. Now, even as the court expanded the notion of liberty, it remained faithful to the idea of liberty as individual freedom from government action, not as a right to a particular government entitlement. None of the liberties enumerated in other cases could be characterized as state-created benefits, right? They were limiting the government. To the contrary, even when interpreting the due process clauses, the court distinguished between the rights inherent to the individual and the privileges established by the government. And they were trying to kind of splice this in different ways in that era. The court recognized that a prisoner's entitlement to early release was a privilege that comes as an act of grace to one convicted of a crime. It's not a right protected by the due process clause, right? So that's how they kind of spliced it. They said, well, it's privileges versus rights, and they were adding a bunch of stuff that wasn't there. Now, in short, entitlements established by the government cannot be liberty under the due process clause. Liberty interest is not even valid. His claim rests on the legitimacy of his due process claim. He's relying on another case, but Clarence Thomas says that case is crap. Even this other Charles professor guy in the 1960s who went to Yale talked about this, and he's going to give us some background from that dude. And Osborne also relied on it. And so we should correct this error, says Clarence Thomas. Texas has voluntarily chosen to prioritize claims of actual innocence at a significant cost to its interest in finality. Now, thanks in no small part to decisions of this court, capital cases, death penalty cases today, are routinely plagued by decades-long delays between sentencing and execution. They cost millions of dollars, very costly in terms of time and resources. Now, by recognizing a liberty interest in Texas's post-conviction procedures, this court, he's in the dissent right now, has converted those procedures from a means of vindicating actual claims of innocence. Now it's just a tool of obstruction. And we don't need to look any further than this case and to see exactly how this guy is obstructing the outcome. 26 years after the brutal murder of Escolastica, this court stayed the execution. Why? 26 years. Is he like developing a nuclear weapon or something? Why? Not because Gutierrez has made a compelling allegation of innocence. Rather, the court stayed the execution because we had a question about standing. Does he have standing to sue? There was every reason to think the ultimate claims of actual innocence is absolutely baseless. The key premise that he hopes on, that the DNA is going to help him with, is to say that he was not inside the home when that woman was stabbed to death. But that's contradicted by the actual evidence in the case. He confessed it, to say nothing of the unanimous statements of his accomplices as well. And we have held 3 times in Texas that Gutierrez would likely still have had been convicted of capital murder, even if he was not inside the home. So it doesn't even matter. DNA can show it either way. They already gave him process. Again, more due process. And he would lose anyways. And in his most recent motion, the trial court explicitly found that he made the motion for the purpose of delaying the execution of his sentence. Okay, so they're like, all right, dude, again, you've already filed this. In short, Texas determined that we're done with him. And if this is what states can expect when they create new post-conviction avenues, they may conclude that it's just not worth it. Because the Supreme Court is going to say that they get endless rights. Now, his suit rests on non-existent liberty interest. The Due Process Clause protects people from government interference. It does not guarantee an entitlement to government benefits like Texas's voluntarily adopted post-conviction procedures. In other words, you're not entitled to that outcome. By intervening to revive this suit, this court facilitates this unjustified delay, and that is why I, Clarence Thomas, respectfully dissent. And so, Clarence Thomas not happy about this. I thought this was a very instructive dissent here on due process and how the majority of the court is saying he can sue. He should be able to file a claim to go get that DNA evidence if he wants to before the death penalty is executed. And ultimately, I think this is a political decision mostly. I think that Amy Coney Barrett and Roberts are a little squeamish on the death penalty, and so they were in the majority. But Clarence Thomas, regardless of your position on the death penalty, is legally and logically accurate. It's right. The courts perverting the rules, reading into due process, whatever they want, is what got us here to this very problem. We're recovering day after day these nationwide injunctions. Why did the judges grant the injunction? Because they say there will be harm to somebody. What is the harm? A violation of their due process. Okay, and so it's all made up. We get it. They've had plenty of due process. This guy's had due process for 26 years, and the court will default on the side of more process rather than less. And I think when you're talking about death penalty cases, it's also hard not to argue with that because death is final. And wouldn't you rather just say, well, we looked, the evidence said you were inside the building. Now you're done. Problem is, the evidence is going to, if he does get the DNA and it says that he was inside the building, he'll come up with something else and then he'll file another claim. And so if Texas says, even if you might disagree with the death penalty, which I do, then what would you say in Texas if that is their law? Like they passed the law, they believe in it. It's how the statutes work. You knew the law when you were there, shouldn't have murdered somebody. You got all the due process in the world. You might morally or politically disagree with the death penalty, but it's their rules and it's their state. So, sorry, shouldn't have done that. And you got plenty of process, right? And so even if you disagree with it, you might say, well, it's their rights and they should do and operate their states appropriately. Now, someone else who's trying to clean up our streets is the president. And he was there with a bunch of people at the White House talking about this big, beautiful bill and was ripping on Old Joe Biden.
This is the ultimate codification of our agenda to, very simply, a phrase that's been used pretty well by me over the last 10 years, but maybe even before that, make America great again. Very simple, make America great again. When Joe Biden used to get up and say, we will stop this horrible MAGA, we're going to stop MAGA, we're going to fight it, I said, Joe, loosen up. It's called Make America Great Again. It's okay. Remember that he got up so angry. He was so angry. He said, make America great again.
And we're doing it, Joe. So thanks for getting on board. So the Supreme Court giving us some wins, giving us some losses, kind of slowly rolling out these decisions, but they'll have some big ones here tomorrow, including birthright citizenship. It's not probably going to be a substantive ruling on that. More about the injunctions and what's happening. So we'll be here, my friends. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for subscribing, and we'll see you back here on the next one. But we're not done yet. We got one final segment on the day, and then we'll hear from you. Kilmar's attorneys are freaked out. You can see they submitted this emergency motion for an order from Judge Zenas in Maryland to return Kilmar Armando Abrego Garcia back to her district. He was in Tennessee. A judge in Tennessee said, let him out. Homeland said, we're going to pick him up and send him out of here, not going to El Salvador, but we'll just send him to Somalia or some other location. And now they've admitted that is going to be happening, which is why his attorneys are freaked. Axios reported about what happened in the hearing, saying the Trump administration is admitting, or acknowledging rather, that they're going to deport him. Where? Don't know. Some unnamed third country. Part of their renewed efforts to get rid of him. Abrego was returned earlier. We read through the two orders saying that he was not a flight risk. He's a good person. He was just scared of pupusas, wasn't trafficking people, wasn't beating his wife, wasn't scaring the kids, none of those things. So they said in court, Trump's DOJ, our plan is that he will be taken into ICE custody and removal proceedings will be initiated, said Jonathan Gouveia, deputy AG in the civil division. Paula Zenas, the judge in Maryland who's being sued by Trump, said, to El Salvador or to a third country? He can go to El Salvador because his withholding was for Guatemala, but he said to a third country is my understanding. And what they're saying at Homeland is, we've said for months, it remains true to this day, he will never go free on American soil. Never. Saying due to operational security, ICE does not confirm future removal operations until they've landed in their respective countries. And so you're going to get him gone, and you're going to have to go find him now. He wasn't in El Salvador on our continent. He's going to Somalia, so go visit him in Africa. The Justice Department did not respond to Axios' request for comment. There's no timeline for removal. Abrego Garcia said, and his lawyers, that they were concerned that they could release him and then they could remove him over the weekend back to Somalia or some other place, and he can spend the rest of his time there. Now, they sent this one in very upset. Your Honor, when his custody in Tennessee ends, he is now someone who should be returned here, right? And Zenas is being sued, by the way. So is the entire court in Maryland for their corruption and their standing order that was also providing extra free ex parte due process by default from a court clerk for every single immigration removal case that got filed in their district. Trump sued all of them, every judge. Yesterday we covered it. The government has stated that once Abrego is released, it's going to take him into immigration custody, and they're going to try to remove him. Again, they say to El Salvador. That's not what they said. Where it illegally removed him over 3 months ago. And by the way, I emailed Kilmar's lawyers. I don't know if these lawyers, I think maybe the other lawyers, I can't remember, some one of them. I said, can you send me the document of your withholding of removal order for El Salvador? Crickets. Where it illegally removed him over 3 months ago, plaintiffs therefore move here to have you, Judge Zenas, order him to be in our jurisdiction so that she can claim power over him. Direct the government to bring him here. Refrain from removing Abrego from the continental United States. This is an emergency because they're going to move quickly. And what happened, of course, is there was a hearing that took place today. There was a telephone conference that took place in front of Judge Zenas' courtroom, and we got a scheduling order that came out today saying, as discussed during today's recorded status conference, the court sets the following schedule for the motions. Trump submitted a motion to dismiss this case. Remember, this is not the criminal case. This is Abrego with the gangbang lawyers suing Kristi Noem to stop removal proceedings. It's not him being charged with a crime. So Trump says, well, they sued to stop his withholding of removal. He's back in the United States. You have no more jurisdiction over this. And so this case should now be dismissed. So the judge is saying, we'll have a hearing on this. I'm going to need further briefing. And your emergency motion, we'll also talk about that on July 7th. Oh, wow. So that's a long time for them to put him on an airplane and get him out of there. So the ACLU gangbang lawyers are losing that one. They're like, emergency, judge, emergency. And she says, well, you got 4 days until I need a response. So, and after that, if you want anything in reply to the motion to dismiss on July 2nd, then we'll actually have the motions hearing to argue those, your emergency motion, in July. So plenty of time for them to load Kilmar up and get him out of here. So their emergency essentially was denied. Brief your stuff. See you in 2 weeks. Not much the judge is willing to do at this moment. So got some clips here about some immigration stuff. Senator Blackburn was out today. She's over on YouTube, posted her introductory speech today in the Senate, and here's what she said.
President, every day our nation's ICE officers are putting their lives on the line to get criminal, illegal aliens out of the communities. And I wanted to see firsthand what they were going through. So this past weekend, I joined a ride-along with ICE agents outside of Nashville. Until you're actually on the ground, you do not appreciate the amount of work that goes into their operations. They are identifying the criminal illegal aliens. They are finding out where they are, and they're figuring out the safest way to surveil them and also to apprehend them. And it is so much more than a full-time job. As I visited with the agents, what I found out is that nearly every one of them are working 75 and 80 hours a week, dealing with some of the worst criminals imaginable. Now, when I joined the agents for the ride-along, they were targeting a criminal illegal alien who had been convicted of child sexual abuse. The agents could see a child on the individual's property, but they could not enter the home because they are not given a warrant. Instead, they have to wait until the criminal comes outside or is in a public space, and then they're able to apprehend him. That's why it is so important that local law enforcement work with our ICE agents.
And not against them, like many Democrats are encouraging. Even some Democrats, like the vice mayor of LA, is encouraging her hombres and amigos to get out there and beat the heck out of, I guess, the ICE invaders. Now, here's another representative. His name is Barry Moore, over from Alabama. He's saying that we need to pass this bill to make some common sense changes to immigration laws, including not admitting illegals who are committing DUIs all over our country.
Despite having five previous DUI convictions, a Boulder, Colorado county judge sentenced this illegal alien to probation, community service, and released him on December 8th of 2023. In relation to those two convictions, just 4 days before the drunk driver crashed and killed a mother and her son. Or consider the case in Florida, where just earlier this year, an illegal alien from Mexico was arrested for his third DUI after he hit and killed a kindergartner. In Texas, in December of 2024, an illegal alien killed a 7-year-old girl after he drove drunk, crashed into the car that was being driven by the girl's mother. Just months earlier, under the Biden-Harris administration, ICE had lifted the detainer, which had previously been lodged against this illegal alien after he was arrested for assaulting a family member in June of 2024. H.R. 875 makes common sense changes to immigration laws to make an alien who is convicted or who admits driving under the influence inadmissible. It also makes an alien convicted of doing so removable.
Pretty simple stuff. Seems like that would already be the law. No, it's not, according to this congressman, because our country has allowed insanity to take over. Now, here is another one. Rep. Tom Homan was out talking immigration, saying, we got to get this bill passed. Look at all these people standing back here who need these tax cuts. This mom is door dashing. This dude's doing construction. This guy's rounding up some cattle. That's a cop back there or a security guard. And there's a bunch of other people doing some amazing things. And Tom Homan is trying to secure our border so Americans can have good jobs, safe lives, and not have our kids being killed from fentanyl.
Well, look, I think this issue of the big, beautiful bill should be nonpartisan. I don't know what the hell's the matter with everybody up in Congress?
Yeah.
People are dying every day. ICE is arresting 3 times as many criminals that the Biden administration did. We're taking public safety threats and national security threats off the street every single day. But we got over 600,000 illegal aliens with criminal histories walking the streets of this country. We got less than 5,000 deportation officers. This should be a no-brainer. The more resources we get, if we get this bill passed, we got more agents on the road. We buy more beds, we get more transportation flights. More agents means more bad guys arrested, taken off the streets of this country every single day. Every day we arrest a public safety threat or national security threat. This makes this country much safer. Who the hell would be against that? And I get irritated, I get pissed off because I'm sick of meeting angel moms and dads. You want to talk about family separation? They buried their children. So I've done this since 1984. I've worked for 6 different presidents. No one has had the success of the Trump administration. We got the most secure border in the history of this nation today. But we need more border wall. Border walls save lives. Women and children can't get over that wall, which means they go to a place where there's not a wall. And what's waiting on them? The men and women of the Border Patrol who take care of the humanitarian needs and save their lives. We already got fentanyl seizures down half. Fentanyl seizures should be 100%. We should have 0 fentanyl coming to this country. We need money to help secure that border at a higher level. Stop the fentanyl from coming in. Stop the sex trafficking of women and children. Stop the known inspected terrorists coming across that border. Right now, I was looking at the stats today. ICE is arresting a record number of known suspected terrorists in this country, along with the FBI. With more money, we can arrest more of these people, make this country safer. This is a nonpartisan issue. Let's make this country safe again. So to the Democrats and the Republicans and the Independents, I don't care who you're from, pass the bill so we make this country safe, so we can stop the violence against ICE officers. Let's make this country safe again. And without that bill, it's going to be a hard road. We got a lot of people to look for, a lot of people to arrest, a lot of national security threats we know are in this country. We need to find them. We need more money to do that. We need more agents to do that. For God's sake, let's pass this bill and get this done.
Thank you, Tom Homan, for delivering that burner out there. We'll see if Congress does that. They like to spend money for other countries, not so much for our country. And we don't want to spend a bunch of money, but Trump also needs a little bit of runway and a little bit of cash moolah to start getting things done. And then we hope that in the aftermath of, the next round of budgets, we get some nice cuts and some nice reforms and we grow our way into prosperity. Now, Trump also was here today sharing this photo of this poor angel father, angel dad, who lost his daughter, Katie, to another maniac illegal alien who should have never been in our country in a hit and run. And another woman lost her brother to fentanyl. The one big, beautiful bill will end this border invasion. Here's the president explaining.
And here today is angel dad, Joe Abraham, the angel moms and angel dads. These are incredible people. They lost their precious 20-year-old daughter, Katie, in a hit and run after she was struck by an illegal alien from Guatemala. Katie was stopped at a traffic light, rear-ended, full force, going 60, 70 miles an hour right into the back of her car while she stopped.
Ridiculous.
And she died immediately. And her killer, I think you could really say, the killer fled the scene.
Of course.
And Joe, we will end this invasion once and for all, and we're always going to remember the memory of Katie, that beautiful, beautiful 20-year-old daughter of yours. Where's Joe? Is she around here? Joe? Come here, Joe. Come here.
Amazing.
Ah, boy.
Rest in peace to Katie.
Thank you, Joe, very much. Also with us is Sarah Stewart from Kerrville, Texas, who lost her brother to the fentanyl epidemic that has inundated her small town. Our bill provides billions and billions of dollars to stop fentanyl and other illicit narcotics. We're also charging other countries like Mexico, Canada, and China billions of dollars in taxes that we put on because they've allowed people that are selling fentanyl to go through their countries, or in the case of China, they send it here, and paying a lot of money at least, but would rather stop it. I think we're doing a big job of that, but would rather stop it. And other illicit narcotics pouring across the border and stealing more American lives. And thank you, Sarah will not rest until that fight is done. We're going to get that fight done. Sarah Stewart is where? Sarah? Hi, Sarah. Beautiful. Thank you. Good guy, huh? Yeah. I can see that.
Amazing. So God bless those families. May their loved ones rest in peace. And may all the illegal aliens who are in our country killing our citizens get out. All right, my friends. It has been a beautiful day and a beautiful stream. We covered some good ground today. If you're just joining us, quick recap on what we hit earlier on the show. And so you can hit the rewind button if you want to listen to Rep. Andy Ogles call Mamdani Little Mohammed and then say that he should be denaturalized and deported and thrown out of our country. And we read through the law. And the law says, well, if he's a liar, if he fraudulently misrepresented who he was during his naturalization proceedings 5 years ago, give or take, well, that might be a good basis. No communists allowed. No foreign terrorist nexus individuals allowed in our country. And so maybe he'll be thrown out. We'll see if Pam Bondi does anything about it. I doubt it because, of course. Now, we also heard from Mayor Adams. We heard from Mamdani. And we heard from President Trump asking questions of Senator Schumer. Why does he hate Jewish people? Basically, that's not what Trump said. That's my interpretation of it. But it's a good question for Chuck. Chuck should answer it. Here's another one. We talked about SCOTUS, Supreme Court. We had a victory in a Planned Parenthood case where they said a state can actually dictate where the money goes. And if they don't want to send it to a liberal dumpster fire called Planned Parenthood, who facilitates abortions, then they don't have to do that. And you can't sue over that. So go get your abortion somewhere else. They were crying about it and more. We also then heard from Clarence Thomas, who was in the dissent, very unhappy with what the majority did in a death penalty case, basically saying this guy can continue to fight on, demand DNA evidence, and postpone his execution again. He'll probably die of natural causes by the time it happens. Trump came out ripping on Joe Biden. We talked about the Kilmar case, how they're freaked out because Trump has said, oh, okay, well, if the judge wants to release him, then we'll just send him to another country. Do you want that? Instead, they'll do it. And we saw a new briefing has been scheduled for later in the week. We heard from Blackburn, Moore, Homan, and Trump on immigration, and including from the Angel dads and moms who, of course, lost somebody due to illegal aliens and their invasion of our homeland. But now, my friends, it is time to hear from you, and we're very glad that you're here. Thank you for subscribing to our channel if you haven't already done that. We go live here 5 days a week, and we'd love to have you come back and join us. Tomorrow, we'll be back here for Friday. We're excited about that, too. Members, also, don't forget to stick around. If you want to hang out, we're going to do a members-only after party and debrief on the day, take some final comments, see what you thought of the show, and see what you're doing, really. So come join us, watchingthewatchers.locals.com, or click the join member button on YouTube, and we'll see you in the after party today. But my friends, thank you for being here. Thank you for your support. Thank you for sending in these donos. Welcome to our new membos who are coming in. I see we got a couple of them. And let's see what's happening on the day. All right, so we're getting this loaded up here. My apologies. What is this? Yeah, it is almost Friday, baby. Heck yeah. What are those guys called? The Blues Brothers or something? Cheryl Stubbs. What's up, Cheryl Stubbs? Thank you, Cheryl, for becoming a supporter. What's up, Donut and John Clipping for us? We appreciate you both. Ravicus says, it's not preventing foreign ownership, okay? But it puts it under greater scrutiny, I guess. The Protect Our Bases Act will enhance the review of foreign real estate transactions near critical national security institutions, and that's what that looks like. Yeah, it's a weird thing to have all these Chinese farms popping up around our military bases, especially when you know that they're also smuggling in biomaterials like Fusarium germanium and worms. Not good at all. Jason on Blast. Tomorrow is a Friday. We're excited about it, no doubt about it. Thank you, Jason. Get excited. We are. Jason on Blast, bringing in 10 membos. Thank you, Jason. Sam in Texas, welcome. Bioman is here. What's up, Sassy Tech? Edward Bentley, we got Chaz G. Wynell Ulrich, Wayne Hinson, Katie Hallman, Spine is here, and Rob Kane, all gifted membos, courtesy of Jason on Blast. Thank you, Jason, for doing that. Welcome, 10 new friends. Kim Summers, what's up, Kim? We'll see you in the membos only after party. Grab the stream from this morning. What did we talk about this morning? Iran stuff, probably. A lot of other good things. Oh, Carrie Lake. We had a fun one with Carrie Lake. She supported an Arizona congressman called Greg Stanton, and she said, I don't believe the lies about you and your gay lover. I don't believe it. The media's flyers. They're full of hacks. I would never, ever believe, was what Carrie Lake, paraphrasing, said. I would never believe that Greg Stanton had a gay lover, is what she said. So, and they got all mad about that at her. What's their problem? Anyways, we talked about that this morning. Kim Summers, what's up? We got Doan. Lil Mo campaigning on a platform of insurrection. Yeah, what is the name? Little Muhammad. Like, you can't say that, right? I don't think so. And unless he said it of himself, but like, what if you just swap the label? Like, just apply it to a Jewish person? I don't think that would work out very well. Mock Schnell, what's up? Sent 20 new membo friends in the house. We got Trusty James is here. Welcome. Janet Beardsley, Alec Orozco. What's up? Let's go, Brandon. Adam Franklin. Nate is here. Jeffrey G. Too legit to quit. We got Grumpy Old Man. Salty Vet Dad. What's up? Lethal. Paul Devereaux. Too many hobbies, Dad. Michael Jones is here. Amanda Goldberg. We got Spin Max. Derek DeVries. Remcliffe. We got Robert Arthur and Mike Dorava. All gifted membos, courtesy of Mock Schnell, who's back from Lake Tahoe. We saw that this morning. Thank you for that, Mock Schnell. Gene Crane. What's up, Gene Crane? You know, the Communist Control Act of 1954 is still law. You cannot serve in or hold any government office if you are part of a communist organization. And that should be the law. The communists are... That is a very pernicious ideology. And it results in the death of hundreds of millions of people. So it's good law. Thank you, Gene. Doug Roach. What's up, Doug Roach? Thank you for becoming a member. We appreciate you, Doug. We got Nana Bear and this very friendly bear. Don't you want to just go give that bear a hug? Just come here, friend. And then you'll be eaten. What's up, Nana Bear? Bringing in a bunch of membos over on Rumble. Thank you, Nana Bear, for doing that. Roadkill Dinner. Speaking of being eaten by a bear. We got Imagineer. Zillow won my pillow. We got Warcat, Slidey Pie, D for Trump, South Sea. Just me again and again. Bad Dude, A Dude, and Janek. Gifted membos on the Rumbles. Nana Bear, thank you for doing that. And 10 new Rumbles members. As soon as we figure out what Rumble allows us to do with those, which I don't think is anything at the moment, we will. Thank you for sending those in and supporting us, Nana Bear. We appreciate you. KC Cat, he became a citizen 5 years ago. brand new, just like Judge Amit made up, like in 2019. This old guy, Zohan Mamdani, was naturalized as a U.S. citizen in 2018. Amazing. Yeah, so about, 5-7 years ago. So within the 10-year limitation, so any communism in those last 7 years. Bye. Here's another one from Nana Bear. Thank you, Nana Bear, for being over on Rumble and doing this for us. Prioritize. What's up, Granny51, Tricks Bandit, AG is here, and Jacob Castro. Gifted membos from Nana Bear on Rumble. Thank you, Nana Bear. Shout out to our Rumble friends. Hey, what's up? Doan says, the New York Jewish lobby will stick a fork in Lil Mo. Yeah, well, this is going to be a fun battle to watch. Yeah, because there's a lot of Jewish people in New York, for sure. And a lot of money there, too. So there's going to be this little microcosmic battle that will happen there that is probably going to rip apart the Democratic Party. And that's going to be great. Yeah. And we'll have to see what the Jewish community does on this, because as Trump said, he doesn't understand how they can't vote for him. And didn't he say something about having their heads examined or something? I don't know. Jennifer O'Connell, can we deport Ilhan then? Yeah, I mean, maybe, I think so. I'm under the same statutes. If she's a naturalized citizen and she's got communist connections and connections to foreign terrorists, maybe so. Jennifer O'Connell, almost a baby, 2 months to go. We'll have a newborn. Thank you, Jennifer, for being here for so long. We appreciate you. Jason Carlton, what's up, Jason? Thank you for becoming a membo. We'll see you on the after party. We've got NY says, Mamdani's primary victory is doing enormous damage to the National Democratic Party brand, no matter how much we dislike him. Yeah, I think that's right. It's gonna cause a major fracture, and we're here for it. Rick Donner, an armed woman in a lawn chair has shut down the I-45 in both directions in Houston, Texas. What's she doing out there? She's doing a little Texas hunting, maybe? Mizzy M, all I can add to all the pablum here is $10. Thank you, Mizzy M. It's very contributory. I really appreciate it. Thanks for reporting it all. Real news needs to be said and heard. Honest reporting is a rarity these days, although besides you and Tucker's channel, I really don't listen to it. Maybe a little on Gab, but who can keep up with it all? Keep up the good work. I'm with you on that, Mizzy M. That's a real nice category to be in alongside Tucker. We appreciate that. Shout out to Tucker. And I check out Tucker's stuff a lot too. He does good interviews with some interesting people. So we appreciate that. Thank you, Mizzy M. It's good company. And thank you for being here. And thanks for watching our stuff. And thanks for supporting our work. Mock Schnell, thank you for 20 more friends coming in. Look who is here. Scott is here. William Holiday. We got Tonics. Donald P. Grim Hollow. Hope for Us. Missy McGuire. Vet and Gibbs. What's up, Steve Pridemore? One Great Plan. Joshua C. We got John Gibson. Slugs is here. Ron and Mary Swanson. We got C. Davenport. Ricky B. That guy's back. Ryan Smith. Michael Harvey. And Wick Dipper. All gifted membo. Courtesy of Mock Schnell in the house. Off Label says, I'm in the deport 'em all crowd now. I mean, I'm getting there too, yeah. It's like, well, if they came in, you know, it's like, well, no, okay. Now it's like, no, round them all up. Even Mamdani, revoke it. Mamdani is an actual threat. How is Congress going to fix it? Come check out the visa process hearing next week from Off Label Podcast. Check them out right next door on all the tubes. This old guy says, I have come to support the First Amendment when it comes. I have to support the First Amendment when it comes to Zohan Mamdani. Denaturalization on the basis of his speech is a stretch. If the people of New York are stupid enough to elect him, they deserve to finish the conversion of New York City to a completely open sewer. Perhaps Bernie and AOC can endorse him. It's all perfect to destroy the Democrat Party entirely. I think that's right. It's going to cause a major, major fissure there. But I don't think their basis, this old guy. So what if the basis had nothing to do with the First Amendment? What if we look back through this guy's records and he was like, you know, made a donation or something to the Communist Party of New York and then didn't disclose that? Would you say that is a basis, or would you say that is just a pretext for his political positions? Because I'm with you also, right? I think that if you're here and you're speaking out and like, but that's not the pretext of the Trump administration. Like, you might say that that's not the justification. You might say it is the pretext. You know, like, oh, no, Rubio's not coming out. Actually, that's not true. A lot of them are saying it's, it's anti-Semitism specifically. But the legal basis that's being filed is that they're a threat to national security. They're a threat to orderliness. It's not the actual lawful removal justification is not based on the speech, even though it might ultimately be about the speech. Casey Cat, he also does what Kamala did, but even more. He changes his multiple accents and it's wild. Look at his speeches. So he does that code switching like Kamala did and like Hillary did, remember? What did she say? 2 ways tired? I've come too far from where I started from. Hillary Clinton. You're like, what? Jacob Hawley. What's up, Jacob? Huge breaking news. Wisconsin Supreme Court voted unanimously in blocking a group of Democrat organizations from trying to throw out the current House maps. This was a great headline, too. The Dems' reasoning is that since Wisconsin is a swing state, the House seats should be even. Yeah, there was this. Thank you, Jacob, for the very nice dono, my friend. We appreciate that one. Says, yeah, the Supreme Court. So remember we had this battle over that Supreme Court seat. We had those 2 judges who were having the debate, and there was an election recently for that judge. Like, great. So the Republicans lost that seat, and they thought this new judge was going to come in and allow the redrawing of the districts, which is gerrymandering. And so you can think about, gerrymandering, like let's say you have 5 districts that are needed in a state. You could draw all the blue people like in one corner. So you just like draw like on a map and say like, we're going to make one district of the blues and then everyone else is going to be red. And you're going to come in here, draw this district like this, get the big city, come over here, get another city, draw it over here. That's one district. Great. Then that's a blue district. Then reds get this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, because it's all rural or something like that, right? That's their argument. In Wisconsin, Supreme Court said, wrong. Nope, we're not going to change the districts, at least this cycle. And so they lost on that big one. Thank you for that, Jacob Hawley. It's good news. Sheila Pooh, if this works, could they do the same to Ilhan Omar? I think so. I mean, I think the idea is if they were fraudulent in their application process, then just like any other contract, you've got mechanisms of recourse there. And it's happened before for things even as like fingerprinting, right? Just not validating and checking their status. Now, these people are high profile. Ilhan Omar, Mamdani, very high people. So they're going to get a lot of scrutiny if you try to do something like that, which is why I think that Pam Bondi's not going to want to wade into that politically. NY Renal, Democrats are more mad at Mamdani than anyone else. He has allowed the right to now define the Democrat Party. Mamdani did? Doan says, if Dems won't properly vet Mamdani, then we will. King of Biltong is here reminding you about biltongusa.com. And you know how delicious biltong is. Check out code Robert if you want to save some moolah. Veni Vidi Vici is here. Thank you, Veni Vidi Vici, for becoming a supporter. See you on the after party. Mach Schnell says, I'm so glad that Wisconsin Supreme Court ruled sanely. Also, the SCOTUS is starting to roll out positive rulings. Now we need them to rule against birthright citizenship because the 14th Amendment was not for illegal aliens coming here to have babies. It was for the slaves, freeing the slaves. Subject to the jurisdiction means you have an allegiance to the jurisdiction. You're not in violation of their laws openly. Thank you, Mach Schnell. Sean of Thyme. Thank you, Sean, for joining up, supporting our work as a member. Grab the stream from this morning. See you in a bit, too. Doan says, why should pastors, priests, and rabbis be forced to fund the progressive policy of rolling genocide and eugenics focused on the black community? From Doan. Yeah, and wasn't the founder of Planned Parenthood somebody who, Margaret Sanger, somebody who actually kind of like wrote about stuff like that? It's weird. Yeah. Hey, Tony Hay Munkets. RF got gifted a membo courtesy of Tony Hay. Thank you, Tony Hay, for doing that. Welcome, RF. I'm an American man. Says illegals didn't use due process on the way in, so they don't get it on the way out. The American people don't get afforded really any due process. Your business gets shut down for 14 days. Just shut up. You're such a whiner. You're going to kill someone. So just close it down. But if you're an illegal, You get multiple hearings. You get judges who fly down to visit you. How many senators go fly to visit American citizens or J6ers who are unlawfully attacked by the FBI? None. KC Cat, no due process rights for illegals from KC Cat. Membo for 9 months. I'm an American Man says certain businesses rely on illegal aliens to maximize their profits while legitimate companies suffer and go out of business because they can't compete or they have to break the law too. Yeah, that is absolutely true. That's absolutely true. And if you have unreported income and people aren't paying taxes and people will work for less because they're sending money back home. And yeah, it's really hard to compete. We've seen it a lot in Arizona. The Tree Godfather. What's up, the Tree Godfather? The only solution is peoplehood, as we teach on my channel called the Tree Godfather. Peoplehood. Anything less is the end of America and the West. Keep up the excellent coverage, Rob. Thank you for that, the Tree Godfather. That sounds like a great channel. I'll have to check it out. Thank you, the Tree Godfather, for that. Peoplehood. Knox Bierman. Happy Thursday, all. We passed the post-conviction relief bill as a response to us killing an F-ton of people who were exonerated after they were executed. Man, Texas. Texas is wild. It's like you get a speeding ticket. You get the electric chair. Says an F-ton of people were exonerated after they were executed due to new evidence, prosecutor misconduct, witnesses recanting. DNA exonerations are over 300 at this point. That's why the death penalty is a difficult issue, because humans are totally incompetent when it comes to this stuff, as you can see. DNA exonerations over 300. Could have been dead. Thank you, Knox. She's a defense attorney in Texas. Appreciate that. Rob, you can't read. You missed in the summary section on Wikipedia. Citizenship began in 2018. I should learn to read one day. Ray Hendrick, 12 months. Happy anniversary, Ray. Thank you for being here for 12 months. Happy 1 year. Chuck Schumer is Jewish? Well, why does he support Hamas then? So he supports unaliving himself? I don't think so, but maybe that's what Trump said. I'm an American Man says, 1 month as a member, first month's the hardest, gets easier from there. Free member milestone comment. Tried it and nailed it. Thank you, I'm an American Man. Thanks for being here for a full month, my brother. We appreciate it. Dave H. I find it interesting that the people who shout the loudest against oligarchy all support political structures that are oligarchical in structure and action, socialism and communism being at the top. Who does he think runs a socialistic society? The people? What? How does that work? Jigum, any chance you can cover this? The Justice Department files a lawsuit against Orange County, California Registrar of Voters. Sure, Jigum. In fact, we covered it yesterday on the show. So it's already done. Request fulfilled. Yeah, we talked about that yesterday, didn't we? Pretty sure. Here's the link. Pretty sure we did. Was it this lawsuit, Robert Page? Yeah, we did. It's all right, Jigum. Now I know you didn't watch the show yesterday. Burst into a billion pieces. But anyways, all right, thank you, Jigum. Yes, we covered it yesterday. Did a full video on the show. Hey, Sean of Thyme. Lil Mo's rap song in support of Hamas came out in 2017, 1 year before he was naturalized. Wow, did he disclose that to his parole, his INS person? I don't think so. Writing rap songs for Hamas, right? That sounds like a fraudulent application. So why should he be granted a benefit for failing to disclose a very critical thing that he would have signed under penalty of perjury that he disclosed? Maybe he did disclose it. I don't know. Goofy for Jesus says on Third Temple issue. Yeah, we've been talking about this. I don't know what's going on with the temples. On the Third Temple issue, as in Jesus's day, they overlooked him thinking Messiah would be a king and missed the point. Our body is a temple. As we wait for a building, are we also missing it? You know, the temple is here. Man, that's profound. Goofy for Jesus. Yeah, we're asking about that. The red heifers and the building of the temples and, Israel as a nation versus a church versus as an heir, things like that. Interesting. Learning more about the temples every day. Cheryl. It's just Cheryl, fake last name. My last name starts with a V. I think it's right on locals. but I can't change it on this site. Well, either way, we appreciate that you're here, no matter what name you choose. That's one of the nice things of the internet, is you can be multiple handles if you so choose. Cheryl S., thank you for sending this in. Thanks for watching on Rumble. We're grateful for you. I'm an American man. Thank you for another one, says cool. And we appreciate that. It is a cool pair. He looks like a fun dude to hang with. Hey, it's the Munkets is in the house. Tony, hey, Munkets. Good to see you, Tony. Thank you for bringing in 20 new membos. We got Aubin Ann is here. Jamie Heather, JD in the house. What's up, Jamie? We got Akano, backsplash on the balls. Ugh, man. I don't have any comments on that one. Dios Candelaria, what's up? Charles Stanley, you're Ray. TJ's here. Pseudo Snark, we got Ray Gallagher. Another Lisa's here. John Lucas, Heath Lewis, Michael Lynn, Marco Twisted, Jay's Girl. What's up, Lady Daisy Guns? S. McGrath, Venturecast, and Jim Ariola. Gifted membos courtesy of Tony Hay Munkets. As we wrap up the day, my friends, thank you so much for sending those in. Welcome to our new membos. Membos, stick around. We're going to pause here, and of course, we're going to come back. So YouTube friends, you're going to go over to the main channel homepage, and I'm going to share a link in the chat if you want to join us on the members only after party. YouTube friends, stick around. And I'm sorry, locals friends, stick around, and we'll see you there in the after party as well. Bruce Rice, baby, sending in some final membos as we wrap it up on the day. Thank you, Bruce Rice, baby. Dun, 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 dun. Look who's coming in from Bruce Rice. We got Ronnie is here. What's up, Tuffy? We got William Terrell. Scott Clements is here. Jason Ingram. All gifted membos. Butch Strong, John Trotter, Frida B, Potato, and Sheila Smith, all gifted membos, courtesy of Bruce Rice, baby. Thank you, Bruce, for doing that. And Donna and John and Carrie B and K Bean, thank you so much for clipping for us today. You guys are amazing. We've got the best mods on the whole planet. We appreciate them. We also want to thank Neuro D, Janek, Dog Digger on Rumble, modding the fort down for us over there, keeping things nice and orderly. We have amazing mods. Just Rhonda, Gigum, who didn't watch the show yesterday. Ooh, busted. Gigum, you got busted. We are going to come back tomorrow, my friends, to get into it again. And so thank you so much for being here. One more reminder, if you haven't subscribed, we'd love it if you did that so that we don't lose you again. We want you to come back here tomorrow. And so that is where we're going to pause on the evening. We're going to leave it there. Of course, we're coming back tomorrow to get into it again. In order to do that appropriately, we are going to need to see you right back here so that together with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful night, my friends. Sleep very well. I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching, my beautiful friends. Now it's that time where the stream must end. We brought the heat with every chat and line. Together we expose corruption. One more time we dove in the truth where the media hides. Lit up the lies with receipts on all sides. The fight isn't over, but we made them sweat. We ain't done yet, no, not just yet. Because together we are watching the watchers. Truth on our side. Watching the watchers. We won't be denied. Watching the watchers. Eyes open wide. Fighting for freedom with nothing to hide. Drop a like and don't forget to share. And bring a friend who's ready to care. Tomorrow's lies are just today's news, but here we see through the scripted ruse. Together we are